Okay, we're live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Freedom Homestead and welcome to the Beyond Labels Book Club. You might be able to tell that we have a special guest with us that we are like over the moon excited. You guys have no idea how excited we are. So, we have, of course, yeah, it's so weird. It's backwards. We have Constance from A Good Life Farm. We have Anna from Fermented Homestead. Below, we have Julie from Row and Co Farms, and our special guest is Heather Cooan, functional nutritionist. You guys have been able to join her in the chats. She has a lot of fantastic information because of her background, which we'll get into that in a little bit. And so we are really excited to have her on the panel today. So thank y'all for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
We hope everyone had a wonderful Easter resurrection day, whatever you like to call it, if you observe it. And we just hope you all had a fantastic week. So before we get into talking about the book and our reading assignment, Heather, would you like to kind of tell everybody who you are, where you're from, what you're about, and how you started following homesteaders?
Yeah, sure. So my story is similar to one of the co-authors of the book, Sina. I have two autoimmune conditions. I'm a Hashimoto's tender flower, like Miss Julie. I feel you, girl. And then I also have something called lichen sclerosis, which is terrible. It's when the immune system attacks the skin of your genitalia. And if it's not taken care of, like mine wasn't, it's very rare. And it's misdiagnosed, like, and blown off by doctors most of the time. And so I've had it since I was a kid. And if it's not taken care of, it can progress into cancer. So I ended up with vulvar cancer as well. And so in order for me to avoid chemo and radiation, I actually turned to kind of the holistic healing area. So my naturopath, who I was seeing at the time for Hashimoto's when I was diagnosed with cancer, sat me down and was like, look, girl, if you don't want them to remove important parts or like fry you with radiation or poison you with chemo, you can take care of this naturally. And so I ended up doing a ketogenic diet. It was therapeutic, which is very different than what you're following, Tangi, or what is often out there for weight loss on the web. A lot of measuring, a lot of very strict foods, like 85% fat, heavy fat. So I did that as kind of my base. And then instead of doing chemo and radiation, after they couldn't get it all in surgery, I did high dose vitamin C through an IV, as well as hyperbaric oxygen chamber therapy and some intense supplementation and a complete overhaul of my lifestyle. And so last month, gosh, we're in April already, right? May, where are we? April? This past February, I'm 4 years cancer-free and in autoimmune remission from both of my autoimmune conditions. And the process of cleaning up my lifestyle and learning how to feed myself healthy food led me to all of the stuff that we're talking about in this book and learning about how our food system is messed up, which just kind of naturally progressed into figuring out how to grow my own and source locally, which has led me into the homestead life. So I'm in Phoenix, Arizona, in the city. So we're like urban homestead style right now. I've got 3 beds. I'm asking for another one for my birthday. So my husband's going to do the heavy lifting there. And I love watching all of you guys and everyone else in the homestead community. And I love that you're so friendly to me when I comment on your videos. This is the most welcoming community I think I've ever seen online. And I think it's wonderful. So I'm super excited to join you guys today.
Awesome. We are super pumped to have you here. Like, beyond. Yeah, whenever I know back, I guess it was a little over a year ago, I was posting Wellness Wednesdays, and it was when I was doing keto and I was doing really well. And you were always so encouraging. It never felt like criticism. You like weren't being a Karen. And I remember one time you said something like, you said that I was very well informed. And I was like,
yeah.
Okay, before I like really let that go to my head, I'm going to check out and see who you are and if you know what I'm talking about. And when I clicked on your stuff, I was like completely blown away by your story. So Heather does have some, she has a couple of videos on her channel. If you guys want to make sure and subscribe, I've got links to her Instagram and to her YouTube down in the description. But she's also been on a lot of different podcasts. So I kind of stalked her for a minute to see who she was and what she was about. It was just really amazed by your story. I mean, it truly, truly is. I think it's hopeful because there's a lot of people who they don't want to do chemo. They're probably like me, and they've seen people who have had cancer and have gone through chemo, and just how they had, like, the chemo was worse than the cancer. And just, I think your story is such a light to people who are worried that maybe there's not a better way, but you've shown that there is, and I think that's awesome.
Thank you so much. And if it's not obvious, I changed careers and now I help other people do what I did. So my practice is half autoimmune folks and half oncology folks. On the oncology side, I get a lot of end stage, stage 4, lots of organ involvement, metastasis, heart crushing stories. But it's wonderful to see if we add the nutritional support piece along with lifestyle, they can make it through a lot of these terrible treatments, and we can extend the quality of life and the longevity of life. And I'm blessed, right? The cancer diagnosis was the smack in the head that I needed to realize where I should be. And this is where I should be.
That's awesome. All right. Go ahead, ladies. Yeah.
You're on mute, Anna.
You're on mute.
Thank you. Sorry, my husband was rustling in the background. I didn't want it to affect the sound quality. But I was just curious, like, what kind of, did you do any kind of training or courses, classes, school?
Oh yeah, credentials might be a good thing to tell everybody about. So I am, I have a master's, but it's not in nutrition, it's in business. So I went to the Nutritional Therapy Association and did my nutrition therapy practitioner certificate. So the NTP is, and then I'm also certified as a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, which is more about functional testing. I do a lot of lab work in my practice, and really getting under the food and seeing what the dysfunction is in the body that we can fix and restore so that people can tolerate more foods. I get a lot of people who eat like 5 things and that's it. And right now I'm currently finishing up my oncology nutrition consultant certificate as well. So I'm digging into the nitty-gritty about cancer. So that's that. And eventually I'll probably go back for a master's in nutrition as well.
Do you do remote treatments as well? Or do you
do it? My whole practice is online. So everything is remote. I work with people all over the world. I've got clients in Scotland and Australia and Canada and all over the place.
Very cool.
That's awesome. Very neat. So I'm sorry. Okay. if anyone that's joining us in the chats, if you guys have any questions for Heather, just be sure to put them in all caps so that way we catch them. But Constance or Julie, do y'all have anything you want to add before we go ahead and get started? No. Okay. All right. Awesome. All right. So our reading assignment this week was the last 4 bites of chapter 4. So we're going to start with 31, which is one of my favorite things to talk about. Stock up on sale items. And so if you're joining us, what this is this book is encouraging people to eat closer to the land, closer to home, more natural, how things are found in nature. And we know that that kind of lifestyle is a little bit more costly than the conventional stuff, because you've got farms with subsidies and other things that contribute to lower cost. But it is possible to eat more nutritionally in whole foods. And so this book breaks changing your lifestyle over 1 bite at a time so it's not overwhelming. Okay, so number 31, stock up on sale items. So what are some of y'all's favorite things that you buy in the store that you like to watch for sales? Like brands, things, like what do y'all like to get?
I'm usually looking at beans. I look for canned beans a lot. I think that's something that goes on sale pretty regularly. You see a lot of the like 10 for 10 for organic canned beans. I know you can get them cheaper. You can can them yourself. I do that also. But when I see them on sale and I can get the organic ones and they're already ready, that's usually one of the top things I look for. Rice is another one I look for when I can find it on sale. Because those things really store for a long, long time. So those are things that I really really try to stock up on meats too if you can find them. But here lately, it's hard to find a good price on organic meats. Most of the time, it's just really expensive. So yeah, I think those are my top things that I'm looking for.
I usually hit my specialty products. So in January, I'm looking for deep discounts on Zevia because I have a problem, as well as deep discounts on all things Primal Kitchen. So I really like their sauces and things, and they make for really convenient, just additional changing things up. Those are two big things that I look for. I don't do a lot of packaged stuff. So then other than that, it's like chicken, so I can can it all myself and keep it on the shelf.
Of course, y'all know I love my salvage store. I can find all kinds of organic. They do, sometimes we'll have the Primal Kitchen brand. I think if you just do a Google search in your area for discount stores, Benton Dent stores, ask around, Amish salvage, there could be one within a decent amount of distance from you. And it's definitely, in my opinion, worth it at least to go once a month to see if there's something there that you can stock up on. But as far as like regular grocery store, Aldi will usually have organic grass-fed beef for, in my area, sometimes under $5 a pound. And that's usually a good time to stock up on stuff like that.
Yeah. If anybody has a Sprouts in their area, grass-fed, grass-finished beef will often go on sale $3.99 a pound, at least in Arizona. Probably pre-pandemic pricing, but there you go.
That's a really great
Yeah. A lot of times I'll look for the organic meats to go on sale because usually when they go on sale, you're like just the percentage wise, you are saving a good bit of money. I went to my local Kroger a few weeks ago and they had all of their organic beef marked down to, it was $3.99 a pound. I bought them all and I had zero regrets.
I do
You
that
can freeze them, you can can them, you can save it for later, and that's preventing against inflation.
I do that with buffalo too, ground bison, because it's not commonly eaten. So I wait until it's marked down manager special, and then I throw it all in the freezer.
Oh yeah, I love bison.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I've ever eaten it. Is it?
Tastes like cow.
Okay, I was about to say, I would assume it tastes like beef.
It's just real lean.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I would say so too. I do probably the same thing. Like I don't go to the grocery store terribly often. It's very, very rare. I usually stock up at like Costco and Azure Standard. Like that's kind of my go-to. That's where I get very vast bulk of my stuff. I mostly go to the grocery store for if they have meats on sale, I will stock up for sure. And if I'm consuming produce, then I will usually just look for produce that's in season. If it's something that's storable, then I'll keep it up or freeze it. But I mean, for the most part, I'm not the one to ask on saving at the grocery store because I almost never go. My husband goes because he's that kind of convenience stuff. But for me, I love me some Azure Standard.
Yeah, same. There are a couple of cleaner options of conventional foods that my husband does indulge in that we look for sales on. Like there's a specific salami that I've vetted the ingredients on and he loves. And so every time that goes on sale at Costco, I fill the freezer. And then his damn gluten-free Oreos. At least they're gluten-free. We're getting there.
Yeah. For me, with my husband, he eats all that kind of stuff. And I think lately, this year book and the book club and things like that have kind of started to, because I've been talking about it to him and with my son as well. And I think he's finally starting to come around. Like he's finally starting to understand how bad it is and what it does to his body. And I feel like there might be a glimmer of hope at some point. Maybe he'll stop buying that stuff. We shall see.
The one video where you did a grocery haul and you were like canola oil and you're like, this is for Robert. I don't eat this. And I was like, you're killing me, Robert. Please don't use the vegetable oil.
I know, right? But yeah, it's somehow it works for him. I don't get it, at least for now. And that's what I'm telling him. I was like, sure, it works for you for now. You can pay the farmer, or you can pay the doctor.
That's right. It's a slow
Exactly.
slow
It's
process.
so hard to admit that all the years you've been eating the wrong thing. You don't want to admit that to yourself or to anyone. I mean, it just feels almost shameful in a way because you're like, no, I don't eat bad. But when you really start looking at the evidence behind it all, it's like most of the stuff is really terrible for you. And how they all get away with just marketing it off as food is just, it's horrible. I mean, we really are a sick society. Everyone has some kind of allergy, autoimmune, ADHD, cancer, diabetes, heart problems. It's like it goes on and on and on and on. And it's all preventable. It's all diet related. It's all diet related.
Yeah.
And we don't see it or we don't want to see it. We want to believe that that's not what's happening. We want to think it's something else. So yeah. I know we're off topic on the sale thing, but it's hard to make the change for people. It's hard to admit to yourself that things are wrong.
And to double down on that, then you have the addictive component of the manufactured foods, because they literally have something called a bliss point, which is the perfect cross of salt, fat, and sugar for us to become addicted to these foods. And that's sometimes even more difficult to break. Like, was it Jamie Oliver did that special where he did an expose on how chicken nuggets are made, and the kids are like, yeah, whatever, and they ate them anyway, because they're they're addicted to that stuff. It doesn't matter what goes in there.
Yeah, that was horrible. I can never unsee that pink goo.
Yeah, the pink slime and all that stuff when they were talking about that. That's been a long time ago. And he went in the schools and changed their menu in the school, and the kids they did good with it, but then of course the school went right back, I think, to the old way of doing things. And it's do better.
The sugary milks the kids had a real hard time letting go of, the strawberry and chocolate flavored. Yeah, addictive.
Okay, so are you guys ready to move on, or do y'all have anything else you want to add about stocking up on sale items?
Well, I thought it was a really good idea to have your sale fund. I never would have thought of doing that. You know.
Yeah, I know my friend Amanda does that. She puts away money, and then when Dollar General has their clearance sales, or when she goes to or when there's a sale somewhere, she has that extra money set aside. Because I remember when we were a little more broke, I would see something on sale and go, man, I wish I had the extra money that I could stock up on that, but I didn't. But yeah, I had never thought of it either until I met her, and I was like, wow. I'm talking about Amanda from the Beals. If you guys watch the Beals channel, she's a frugal expert. But one thing that I did want to add is for those who are creating their pantry, their whole food pantry, we had talked about before not throwing everything out right away if you can't afford to do that, which most of us can't, especially these days, but to replace things as you run out. So I would highly encourage that if you don't already meal plan before you go to the store, and do that by looking what you already have and think, okay, so I have potatoes, and I have salt, pepper, and I have some quarts of organic chicken broth. We can have potato soup this week. And then when you go to the store, if you want bacon, cheese, green onions, and that kind of stuff, if that's what you're out of, then you just buy that. But if you start going through Pinterest and go, oh, I'm going to make this week and make that this week, then the next thing you know, you're going to have a $200 grocery bill. But if by shopping from your pantry first, creating your meal plan by what is in there, that's going to help you get rid of some of that stuff that you're wanting to replace with healthier options. And then if you can work it out to where the things that you need to buy to finish those meals is what's on sale, then you're going to have even more savings. So it takes practice, but it's completely and totally doable. It becomes second nature at some point.
I have a PDF that I had created of it is kind of like my master grocery list. And on the corner of it, I had a little section where I could plan my menu. And I would never do them in a specific order. I would just have the list of all the different meals. And like the night before, I would go, okay, I'm going to make this one tomorrow, and I would get out whatever I needed to thaw or whatever. And the way I did it is I would look in my freezer, I would look in the pantry, I would see what all I have as I was making my list, and I would try and use those things up first. And then I would fill it in with things that I wanted to make. And then I would get all of the groceries, because I would do this like every other week. And I would get all the groceries that I needed for all of those meals. That way I had everything on hand. I might have to run back later on for like extra milk or whatever, but I would generally have everything I would need for 2 weeks. And while I was at the grocery store, if I did see something on sale, I would stock up on that at that time. And then I would add that into the next, menu that I did, and I could utilize those at that time. I didn't always like plan according to the sales, because like some of the places I would shop didn't have sale papers where you could plan ahead for stuff like that. So I would just invest ahead of time, like when the stuff was on sale, and then just use that later. And I actually have that on my website, like where you can download that PDF, and people could customize it. We were military and we moved a lot, and every time I would move to a new community, the aisles in the commissary would be different. And I had done my grocery list. This just shows you how I am. But I would do my grocery list according to the aisles in the grocery store so that my list was in order, so I wouldn't have to backtrack and get anything that I had forgotten. And so I would redo it every time I moved.
Yeah, one thing that I used to do too is I would go to the store and then I would just buy what was cheap. And I didn't have a meal plan. I would come home with the cheap stuff and then meal plan from what I got, because I had to keep everything in my budget. But another thing too, that I have always found to be helpful, I know people have heard me say, when you're really, really cutting out the budget, that you have to decide there are things that you can just do without. And for me, one of those things is paper towels, or maybe not have as many paper towels. You can't eat paper towels. So the best thing to do is to save back old ratty towels, or you can go to Walmart and buy a stack of those cheap flour sack tea towels, and they make fantastic reusable paper towels. But if you do something like that, then you can take the money that you are not spending on paper towels every week and use that to put towards something more nutritious for your family. But just finding some more like sustainable options where you're not having to buy something over and over, like non-consumable stuff. And that's another way that you can have extra money to go toward those sales to stock up.
And you can reuse things like old t-shirts. I mean, you can take those t-shirts, cut them in half, and if you wanted to get fancy, you could hem it into a pretty little square and make it look nice. But I mean, we always had an old pillowcase filled with torn t-shirts, and it was the rag bag, and that's what we used for cleaning up things, because you just throw them in the wash when you're done, and you're saving money.
Exactly. Parker was cleaning out his closet. Parker's my 16-year-old son, and he has gone through the craziest growth spurt of the last couple of years. Anyway, so he was purging some of his stuff, and he had a couple of shirts that were a little too ratty to pass down. And so, but still in like, somewhat decent shape that they can be used. So I actually cut them up and I cut the buttons off, because I don't know if you guys sew or if y'all have price buttons lately, but you go to Hobby Lobby and you're going to drop like $6 or $7 on a little pack of buttons. It's ridiculous. So anyway, but yeah, like he had a flannel shirt. I'm like, this would be like the perfect grease rag for your dad out in the garage. And then if it's ruined, then it can be thrown away and it's no big deal.
And flannel's really absorbent.
Oh yes. Yes. Okay. So are we ready to move on to the next one, guys? 32, which is give your family the freedom to opt in. And I think for a lot of us, I feel like it's mostly moms, mostly the lady of the house, is that we are aware of the food situation, right? And so we're trying to get our family to eat better, but there is so much resistance in this house. This is a family divided. I'm just going to tell y'all. Like, I mean, I make, delicious, yummy food, but when it comes to convenience and snacking and what they get when they're out and about, I have no control over that. So I like how they broke down giving your family the freedom to opt in. And there was definitely some tips in here that I'm going to try to implement and see if it helps. But anyway, so what are some of y'all's tips? I mean, I know Robert eats his own thing, but okay. But like if you have kids, I'm sure Heather, some of your clients probably have families too, and they're, what do I do because I'm trying to eat good, but they're bringing all this stuff in the house. Like, what are some of your tips?
Yeah, it's tough, and it kind of depends on the family dynamic for each individual family. Some families, and it also depends on where they're starting. So if you're starting in like manufactured food land and you're trying to make a change, that's going to be the most difficult place to change. And that's where setting an example yourself really speaks volumes, because just like Anna just said, Robert is starting to realize, oh, maybe I should clean things up a little bit because I'm not going to be this age forever. And she's leading by example with him. And so he's starting to kind of realize maybe he needs to make some changes. And that was huge in my life. Everyone who comes into contact with me feels guilty about what they eat. It's not necessary, but it's the way people are. And my husband actually, as he started to watch my journey, started to be like, oh, well, I know better, so now I'm going to do better. And it just kind of naturally worked out that way. He's also magical in that he can just like not eat things anymore, and he doesn't have a tie to them emotionally like a lot of people do. So setting an example for yourself is probably the biggest one. And Sina did touch on that in the book, which I thought was wonderful. Then it's a matter of starting to replace things little by little. So instead of getting Cheez-Its, maybe you go and you get the gluten-free cheese crackers, right? Like Simple Mills brand has a wonderful replacement for Cheez-Its, and you make that a stand-in. And instead of regular Oreos, you get gluten-free Oreos. Instead of Pop-Tarts, you get Cascade Farms, which is, a little bit cleaner, organic type of Pop-Tart, and you just go bit by bit. So if you're on that side of the spectrum, it's baby steps. It is baby steps. And then, of course, on the other side, there are people that just draw a line in the sand, and they're like, everything that's coming in the house is going to be clean, and it's going to match my requirements, and that's end of story. And then you deal with behaviors where people are going outside of the house and getting whatever they need to fulfill their fix, and there's squabbling and fighting and that kind of stuff. So sometimes that works. Most often that's going to cause a little bit of drama in the family. So I usually go with set an example, do your best, and then, slowly incorporate better options.
I definitely agree with that. For me and like with me and Robert, he just he eats what he wants to eat, and he goes and buys what he wants to buy. My son does the same thing. But for me, like with my husband, he'll eat whatever I cook. Like it doesn't matter. It could be as healthy as I want, and it could be as crunchy as I want it to be, and he'll eat it. So like if I really like, if I'm truly convicted and I'm like, okay, this man needs to eat healthy, I could cook all the meals and he would eat very little apart from that. But I have a life and I don't have time for that stuff, and he is a grown man. I do not need to babysit him. He is free to do whatever he wishes to do. And like I think that I agree that when you come in and you lay down the law, like I've seen a lot of groups on like, the Facebook chats and stuff like that, where they're like, my husband is bringing all this awful food, he's unsupportive and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, get yourself under control. Like you can't control these other people. He's a grown man. He can do whatever he wants to do. It is his house too. And it is his life too. Let him do what he wants to do. Set an example. Like that's kind of how I feel about it. Like just do you educate them whenever you can. Be like, hey, why don't you read the label on that, and look up the ingredients, maybe they'll do it, maybe they won't, but at least plant that seed, and maybe sometime when they're not around you, maybe they'll look up the label, you never know. Like just planting those little seeds, I think will pay off in the long run. But ultimately, like you do you, boo,
Yeah. And cooking healthy things and making it taste incredible is also a real easy way to get them switched over.
And it's so easy to do with natural foods and spices and fresh foods. It is so easy to do.
Yeah. And You can't control adults. When it comes to kids, there is going to be a detoxification period if they're way over on the manufactured side of things. That means you're going to be dealing with behaviors, you're going to be dealing with temper tantrums, you're going to be dealing with all of the detoxification elements. With kids, it's even more difficult because you can't control what they're getting at friends' houses, you can't control what they're getting at school, you can't control what grandma decides to give them, because we grew up like food is a reward and it's usually not good food. So that's a little bit more difficult. And parents, you just got to do the best you can. But once you start educating the people around them that are also involved in their food and letting them know, hey, my child has temper tantrums and short attention span and all of these things when they go in and they eat, whatever the snack is at school, I'm going to send a snack in replacement, or I'm going to send something for the whole class so that they don't feel left out. You just kind of have to do the best you can with what you have.
I agree for sure. My family does really well. Whatever I make, they eat it. That's not the issue. It's not the in the house stuff. It's always the outside of the house stuff. And I'll never be able to control that. It's always going to be up to them to decide what they eat when they leave here and go out into the world, and what groceries they choose and what their budget is. It's all you just hope that you've instilled enough stuff in the last, I think I've been on the real food journey for about 12 years. So I think my youngest daughter has probably benefited the most from it, because she has had this type of diet since she was pretty young. But now she's 18. She goes out, she gets fast food, she goes to restaurants. I mean, she does all that stuff. She drinks Monster energy drinks. Ugh, it makes me crazy, but she has to learn to decide for herself, like what's good for her and what's not. But what I can control is what I buy as groceries, and no one fights me on that, because I'm the one. They don't want to deal with the groceries. They don't want to deal with meal prep. They would rather someone just give it to them. So in that regard, I do have some control in the house, but after that, I don't think I have very much. I have been helping, though. My daughter-in-law, she grew up standard American diet, but heavily standard American diet, more so than I think many of us do. And she's really learning how to change things over, because I think she was a little bit scared at first that it just meant taking away everything that you think is good. And I said, you can't think of it that way. I said, if you like tacos, you can have tacos. Buy good shells, buy a good meat, cook with a decent oil. Those are the things that are important. I don't care if you want to eat tacos, eat them, because I love them too, but use good ingredients. That's where you have to just understand that you can still eat the same stuff. Maybe not all the junk, but as far as meals go, you can cook some delicious meals. And she loves them. And now that she's been around, and she had never eaten a peach when I met her. Never. A peach. Never. And I was shocked by that, because we live in Georgia. It's like the peach state. And now she loves peaches. She eats peaches. I just think that people can be transformed, and they can find a new way, and they can enjoy good food. They just need to learn a different way to make it. So, yeah, I think setting the example is the right way to go. So, yeah, I'm just reiterating what everybody already said, basically.
I think for you in your shopping, it's probably a little bit more important for you than anybody else that you control what comes in your house, because you are so highly allergic to mammals and things like that. If somebody else brings in something that unknowingly has in there, like, you could be sick for days. Like, so it's a bit more important, like, for somebody like you who has this terrible, like, really bad allergy, like, you have to control it. Otherwise, like, you're going to get violently ill. Yeah. So it makes so much more sense for you.
Yeah, for me, I think the less, and we've already talked about this a lot, the less ingredients that an item has in it, the better chances I have of it not having an allergen in it. And so, because mammals actually are in everything, it's so surprising, they're in everything. And having to read so many labels, I really do try to avoid things that have a big ingredient list. I'm like, just buy single ingredients and make it yourself, and just do it that way. So that's that's been the way we've done it for the last year. So, I mean, we've done it that way before, but now even more heavily, like no one brings anything in this house that's not approved by me.
So 2 things that you said that I wanted to point out. One, you were talking about cooking with better ingredients. And like the first thing I thought of was, I think the 2 first changes that I made with what I bought was mineral salt and avocado oil, because we did do canola oil for years until I learned better. So I remember switching to avocado oil and switching to mineral salt. So it's just a small change. You can buy both in bulk, and it's just something that easier and healthier for your family. And then the other thing that you were talking about was the number of ingredients. And something that I don't always do, but that I do try to do is even if it has just a few ingredients, if in your mind it shouldn't be in there, even if it's just a few ingredients, then don't get it. So like you get, I was looking on the back of a can of kidney beans. You would assume it would be kidney beans, water, and like maybe salt, but this had like it had sugar in it. Sugar, and it seemed like there was another ingredient that I was like, if I was canning kidney beans at home, it would not be in there. So I didn't get it, even though there was like 5 or less ingredients. But
It's crazy how many things sugar gets put in.
yeah, makes no
I mean,
sense.
things that are supposed to be savory and there's sugar in them. It's like, are you kidding me?
And if you look up the list of what sugar is called, it's not always called sugar, and it's kind of ridiculous. Like all the dextrins, all the extrins, those are all sugar. They put sugar in shredded cheese to make sure it doesn't stick together. Like, it's crazy.
It makes no sense. And two, it wasn't that long ago that I realized what MSG was. If I understand correctly, it doesn't add to the flavor of something, but it tells your brain, hey, this is really good. You should have more. That is like so bizarre to me.
Yeah.
Toxin too.
Yeah. It's naturally occurring in tomatoes. That's why when you put salt on a tomato, you get that awesome umami flavor. That's MSG. So we took that idea and then we synthesized it in the manufacturing world, and now it's like the magic ingredient to add to inedible things to make them taste wonderful.
I did not know that. And it makes sense that they add it to all of these fake foods. Makes total sense, because without it, we probably wouldn't want it.
Yeah. I mean, think about it. Like, have you ever had a ramen noodle, just plain cooked in water, just the noodle?
Mm-mm.
If you add the sauce of the packet, that's all MSG. Now it tastes wonderful. Otherwise, it just kind of tastes like cardboard.
Ramen is one of those things that like I could just eat a lot of. Growing up, we were so poor that like ramen was like our main meal, and like if we were really doing well, we had macaroni and cheese, like, because then we had milk and butter in the fridge. But like generally, it was like ramen, and I hated it for like a decade straight when I grew up, and I was like, this sucks. And then all of a sudden, I was just like, oh, this reminds me of childhood, and then I loved it like crap. Then I watched like the video camera like down the esophagus and stuff of like when people are digesting the noodles, and I was like, crap.
Yeah. The more you know.
That is my husband's kryptonite. He absolutely loves
So good.
his ramen noodles. To this day, he still buys them. In our house, it's much like it is for you, Anna, where I buy the good stuff, he buys the junk because he eats the junk. And I do what I can. I cook good meals. He eats them, but then he also eats junk at like 10 o'clock at night. And you know, it is what it is. So, like you said, he's a grown man. He can do what he wants. I control what I can control, and he's going to have to face the consequences of his actions.
Yep.
Yeah.
That is the same conversation that we have in this house. I love my husband, and that's me too. I cook the meals, and my family will eat whatever I cook. It's the other stuff. And then like, or if I don't buy something, you know, they're like, you didn't get any, blah, blah, blah. But there have been times like with tortilla chips, that's what my husband eats. That's his snack between meals is tortilla chips and salsa. So if I don't have salsa that I've grown and made myself, then I usually try to get the organic stuff. But I finally found an organic tortilla chip that he actually likes. And I was like, hallelujah, because like I would get the organic ones from Aldi, and he was like, please don't get these anymore. He's like, they're thick and they have no flavor. So I was just like, man, help me take care of you. But anyway, so it's the Late July brand
Late
that he
July.
really likes.
Late July is wonderful. They've got a grain-free made from tiger nut flour that I swear is better than a corn chip.
Really?
Those are very good.
I'll have to try those.
Yeah, Late July is where it's at for the.
It is
tortillas.
good. It's
They have like
thin.
lime ones too. Have you tried the lime ones?
Not tried the lime ones yet.
They're all good.
Yes.
Just try.
They're
Yeah.
good.
They make
Yes.
potato chips as well. I don't know what oils they use in the potato chips because I can't do potatoes, but
Avocado.
their whole, like all of their stuff is great.
Anna says avocado oil. Is that what they use?
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, they have them at my co-op, and I was looking at them the other day because my husband, that's my husband's kryptonite, is any kind of chip, any chip, like chips all day long. He will just eat chips, and he measures them. But like, if there's a new chip, it's like squirrel, like garbage. Like, I do the same thing. Like, it's one of those things. Like, even if I see a new
Texture.
Mhm.
I'm gonna get that for him because I know he's gonna love it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Another change that I really worked hard on making, and if y'all watch my grocery hauls, y'all probably remember that I was trying to switch over from the fake loaf bread that, sandwich loaf, to all these 3 ingredient sourdough bread, which is phenomenal. And it makes the best sandwiches. But me and Emily were the only ones that thought so. Everybody's like, just get the regular bread. This falls apart and you have to cut it. I'm like, fine, just eat the crap then. Just eat the crap.
Does it come in a whole loaf?
Yeah, like a whole. Well, I mean, it's sliced. It's sliced,
is.
but the middle, because it's like an artisan loaf. So the middle pieces are kind of like this big. So you have to cut it in half, right? Well, that apparently is very difficult for some people.
Just too much. It's too much, Tangi.
Oh my gosh, what are we gonna do?
Yeah, but they really do make phenomenal sandwiches. Okay, so we're already over our halfway point. So I'm going to move on to the next one, if that's okay. And this is one that I definitely need to do better, is creating convenience. And I have really, really been thinking about that this past week. If you guys watch, oh gosh, my mind just went blah. Acre Homestead, Becky, she makes freezer meals, like lots and lots of them. And I kept thinking, with my lifestyle, with our busy schedule, I really need to do that, because then I can do all kinds of keto meals. If I'm really swanky, I was thinking like doing like TV dinner size for Jackie and Emily to take to work. I really, this needs to become a priority as the homemaker and the woman of the house for me. I've really, really got to do this. So do y'all have any tips? And y'all in the comments too, y'all got any tips? I'm all ears.
This one is kind of a make it or break it for success for many people, especially because of the world we live in. So canning meals is wonderful. Freezer meals are wonderful. Canning individual ingredients, so it's just a throw together meal, is wonderful. Using devices in the kitchen like the crock pot, the Instant Pot, the air fryer are all awesome. I use the air fryer for everything. Like I warm up leftovers in that sucker. And then meal prepping for a lot of people can be a thing. Every Sunday, I actually make one meal for lunches for my husband for the entire week, because otherwise he won't eat, or he'll eat junk. But if it just has it, then he just goes and he eats it. Like it's like robotic that way. And so it's usually a casserole or some sort of like souped up pasta that's not actual pasta. Something like that is always wonderful. So all of that is great. I would love to do freezer meals the way Becky does. Like I don't have the freezer space, because all my freezer space, every nook and cranny is full of meat, but that would be awesome.
Yeah, and if you don't know who we're talking about, I will put the link to her channel in the description box, not the description box, in the comments. But yeah, she has lots of videos where she bulk cooks or does freezer meals. She even goes to like Goodwill and buys the glass pans, so she doesn't have to buy metal pans over and over. And they're healthy from scratch. And a lot of it is stuff that she has canned herself. So definitely a fantastic resource if that's something that that any of y'all are interested in doing.
And Becky does hers in like a single day. Like she'll take a day and she'll shop, and then she'll take a day and she'll prep, and then she'll take a day and she'll actually do all of the cooking for the freezer meals. It doesn't have to be that intense. If you just double your recipe at dinner and then freeze the second portion, eventually they accumulate. Or if you double up and then have leftovers for lunch the next morning or breakfast, whichever, that can help a ton too.
Yeah, I really like the idea, especially to me, because I can't buy a lot of times all the gluten-free mixes and all that stuff you get in the store. They're okay, but they're expensive. And I think if I can mix up some of like the pancake mix, like they were talking about, or just different, like a cookie recipe mix that I can easily throw together, because those are all the convenient things that you want to be able to do, but you're like, oh, I got to haul out 25 jars with all the different flours and the sugar and everything else. And so, yeah, if you can just have those like pre-made things, and then I think I'm going to maybe try to do some frozen gluten-free pie crusts, because I've been buying those and they are really expensive too, and they're very hard to find. But I think if I can do a batch of those, and then I canned my own chicken pot pie filling. I'll have the pot pie, I'll have the filling. You put it together, you put it in the oven. That's my idea of like a convenience quick meal. So I'm really loving those ideas of putting the flours and different things together to make that ready ahead of time.
It's a huge cost savings. Huge cost savings.
Oh yeah, big time. The one thing that really hit me was like when Joel was talking about what they do with the cracked eggs. And I was just like, oh my gosh, gross. I was like, I don't really buy those convenience types things, but this one really struck a chord for me because I was just talking to my husband about it probably 3 weeks ago. And I was saying, if I make these convenience items for you, if I make a healthy pancake mix, will you actually use them instead of your store-bought stuff? And he said, yes. So I was like, okay, as soon as we get settled in where we're going, I'm going to start doing that kind of thing. So I was like, okay, this totally struck a chord for me. And then the main way that I also like to do the convenience thing is similar to what she was saying. But like I did a video a long while ago, and it was like I was making all these little breakfast items. I was making like the breakfast, like the egg muffins and like the sandwiches and stuff like that. And I just threw them in the freezer, and even my son ate them. I was shocked. Like even he liked them. I haven't done it since then, but that was one thing that was really great, and a way to help your family kind of transition to a healthier way of eating is just having these grab and go, you know, even if they have to microwave it. I mean, like, you know, we didn't have a microwave at the time. I don't know how they heated it up, honestly, but like air fryer, great option. You can just throw those in the air fryer. It's heated up and it's good to go. You know, that sort of thing is a great way to go. For making kind of more convenience items, just having something that your family can just grab and book it.
Yeah, I know Julie has a video where she made a bunch of different seasonings, and I used Becky's ranch seasoning. And because, you know, if you get it from like a Hidden Valley or whatever, it's got stuff in there that you would not have in your pantry normally. So I'm still using the big jar that I made of the ranch. And I mean, I put it like when I make like Mississippi roast, or I made a cauliflower salad and mixed that in there with it. And it was fantastic. So it's convenient because you don't have to like take everything out, and it's way healthier than buying the stuff in the envelope. So, and that's just like a small thing that doesn't take hardly any time at all to do. So that would be another good addition to your pantry, creating a convenient seasoning mix that you know what's in there and you're not afraid to give it to your family.
Yeah, I've now made myself a huge, big quart jar of taco seasoning, because you can use that in anything, chili or whatever. Like I'm tossing that on all kinds of stuff all the time when we're doing something quick and easy. So yeah, we are always down for some good Mexican food around here. So yeah, a generic taco seasoning mix, that's easy than pulling out 6 or 7 jars of all those different things, you know, just cut down. Yeah, you can definitely.
I think that's the one that I use the most too. And I just don't put a thickener in it. That way I can use it for anything. I can always thicken it up later if I want to, but yeah, we use a lot of that too.
And that not only saves money, but you can also cater it to your sensitivities, to your preferences. Like if you like things saltier, you just add more salt. Garlic is my thing, so I like triple the garlic that's called for in the recipe. Yeah, like I don't like. There's no way you're gonna go back once you start doing this for yourself. It's great.
Yeah, it really is amazing to me. You know, I've told people before, if you really consider yourself a foodie, then grow your own food and cook from scratch.
Yep.
Because the quality of the taste is just like, it'll blow your mind. Like the first time I had a caprese salad with ingredients that I grew, you know, the tomatoes and the basil. Oh my gosh, it was like even now just thinking about it, I'm salivating. I'm like, it is the best. Even if you bought the ingredients fresh from the store, it's still not the same than getting it out of your backyard. It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, you get to wait until it's at the peak of ripeness and then you can pick it versus being picked when it's not ripe and then traveling and gassing ripeness and all the things that they do to them. So it's definitely not going to taste the same.
Yeah, it's way better. Way better. All right. All right. Any other thoughts in this arena here? Creating convenience. And that really is a great, yeah, there's so many mixes and meals and seasonings, so many different things. It's just making it a priority, carving out the time and getting it done. At least I know that's my problem.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
How much time most people spend watching TV.
True. And I was telling the girls before we got on that my birthday is this weekend, and Jack gave me my present, which is a Bluetooth speaker that so I can Bluetooth my phone to it. So now I'm like, I can watch House. That's my current show that I'm binging is House. So I'm like, I can set that up in the kitchen, put it on my speaker, and then I can work for hours. It's just doing it. Okay, so moving on to the next one. Sprout and grind your grains. Now, this is something I have never done, but I understand why. I understand why it's important to do it. So let's talk about it. Why is it important to sprout and grind your grains? First of all, let's talk about the sprouting part. Why is sprouting good?
It increases the nutritional level of the grains, and it also removes some of the phytochemistry. So phytochemistry is plant chemical warfare, essentially. So plants don't have teeth or claws to defend themselves from predators, so they emit chemicals. One of those big chemicals is phytic acid. Phytic acid can cause inflammation in the body. A lot of people are sensitive to it. And so when you soak your grains in order to sprout them, it removes a lot of that phytic acid. Same thing with legumes. And so it reduces the reactivity, makes them easier to digest, and then also increases the nutrition in the grains itself. Just make sure you're using filtered water, right?
Right. Yeah, it's that was one thing when I learned. I think I learned most of this reading The Art of Fermentation. I think it's probably the first time that I probably heard it before, but it just didn't really click until then. I mean, I've heard of phytic acid before, but I had always heard that's what gives you gas. You know, that's what makes you bloat and everything. But I didn't realize that it's an anti-nutrient, that it's actually keeping you from absorbing the nutrients that's being offered from the food. And I know I was listening to Sina, McCullough was on a podcast, and she was talking about paleo and talking about, you know, abstaining from grains and things like that. And then she said, but, you know, the caveat is this. It's abstaining from eating grains and legumes the way Americans eat grains and legumes. It's not that they're bad for you. It's just that they're not eaten correctly. And if you actually do some research and learn history of food, you would find that even in biblical times and in before, fermentation was like essential to being able to preserve food. And they knew that is if you want to be able to have bread or things like that, fermenting or soaking was essential to preparing grains. And I don't know, it's so fascinating. Okay, so soaking. Okay, so what's the difference between soaking and sprouting? How do you know when something is sprouted?
So the individual grains themselves grow a tail. They essentially like sprout a little root. And so you're just looking for that little sprout.
And about how long does that take?
3 days for most grains. I think you can get them to sprout.
Mm-hmm.
And they sell kits. So usually it's just a mason jar with like a mesh top. And then you just put your grains. You can also do this with microgreens like broccoli sprouts and things. You just basically rinse them on a daily basis and set them somewhere where the sun can get to them. And they grow their little tails. And then you gotta dehydrate them again, dry them out so that you can then grind them, because you can imagine what would happen if you try and grind something that's still got moisture in it. You're just gonna make a mess, slime instead of powder. Yeah, so it's a process, and most Americans are not interested in that kind of investment in their food.
I used to do that all the time. I think I have a video many, many years ago where I used to do that. But I don't do it anymore. But I noticed a difference in the way that my body digested them. I mean, it wasn't like night and day, but it's like, there was a difference in like my digestion. There was a difference in the way that I felt. And I was definitely able to just consume it better than when I didn't sprout them. I have not sprouted them in a very, very, very long time. It's been probably 2 or 3 years. I think it's been a long time. But I had like the whole kit. I had the little sprouting. I still have it. But if I would give you any tips, buy the plastic lid. Even the stainless steel one rusts. It's stupid. Yeah. Like, just buy the plastic one. Suck it up, Buttercup, and buy the plastic one. I know it sucks. Make sure you get a BPA-free one. And get the best quality plastic one you can. But the metal ones, they just rust. They're stupid. So, but I've heard a different viewpoint on the sprouting, and I was kind of curious what your opinion was on it. I've heard some people, I think it might be primarily in the carnivore community, but people say that when you sprout the grains, you open it up to a new kind of life cycle where they're ready to, instead of like holding on to the nutrients, they're sucking in nutrients from elsewhere, like they're pulling in the nutrients. And so some people say that it's actually draining the nutrients from your body. Does that make sense? Am I explaining that correctly?
That does make sense. That's interesting. I haven't heard that viewpoint yet. So they're saying that when it's starting to sprout, it's essentially growing. So then it needs nutrients, and it's going to pull nutrients from you in order to grow.
Yeah, exactly.
Given the way the digestive tract works and the hydrochloric acid, I don't know that is going to give them enough space or leeway in order to actually draw any nutrients from you in order to keep growing. So I think it sounds a little far-fetched to me. It's interesting. I'm gonna have to look into it.
I heard about it and I was like, I wonder what the reasoning is behind this. So
that's interesting.
It seems to me that once you cook them and bake them, they're dead. So exactly. How are they gonna pull something in?
Exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But same thing, vice versa. If you don't sprout them, then wouldn't that be the same thing though? If you're cooking it,
you mean wouldn't it still be dead if you don't sprout it?
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know.
Yeah. But you also wouldn't have the phytic acid. So Tangi mentioned the term anti-nutrient. An anti-nutrient is something that binds to a nutrient that you are trying to get out of the food, which makes it not what they call bioavailable to you. So even though it would be dead in either case, the sprouted grain would have any of the anti-nutrients removed. And so any nutrient value would be more bioavailable to you, even though it may not be alive if you're cooking it or powdering it. So in which case the nutrient value is still higher.
Okay, I have questions because I've never
I've getting into the nitty-gritty.
I've never sprouted any grains to use as a flour later. I've never done that. I've sprouted seeds to eat, as little sprouts or whatever, but not in this fashion. So my question is if you were, so when you do like a traditional sourdough with wheat that's already been ground, flour that's already been ground, that's not sprouted and then fermented, does that do the same thing as sprouting and then drying and grinding? Would you then ferment your sprouted grains too? Or I'm just curious, like, are they the same? They're not the same process, but does it do the same thing in the end?
Kind of. So fermenting is going to bring down any of the anti-nutrients. For sourdough specifically, it brings down the gluten content. So that part, you end up with the same product in terms of bioavailability, either if you're sprouting or if you're fermenting. So same deal there. Sprouting, a lot of people believe that when you sprout the grain, it's in its active state. So that's when it has the most energy or the most nutrition to provide to you. Plus you're removing the anti-nutrients. So in that instance, it's kind of an either or. I think you're probably going to be doing your body a service if you're choosing one of those options, not necessarily going through the full life cycle of sprouting, dehydrating, grinding, and then fermenting. I don't know that that's necessary.
Well, I have been.
Good question. Really good question.
I've been milling my grains for, gosh, like 15 years and making, and it's interesting because I actually get my grains from Red Becker's, who was in here. But I've never sprouted my grains. And so I do appreciate that they actually told you in here how to do that. So now that I realize it's not that big of a deal, and now that you have explained the benefits of that, I think I'm going to give that a try. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. So there are 3 like universal nutrition principles that I believe apply to every single body, and only 3. One is nutrient density, one is whole foods, and one is proper preparation. And that's where all of this sprouting and grinding and soaking and all of that comes in. Like with rice is probably the most controversial. With the whole grains movement, we decided that everything needs to be intact and whole. But with rice, it's actually, so I have a degree in anthropology also, by the way. So rice is historically, they removed the hull of the rice because that was what kept them from accessing the nutrients in the rice itself. And it also makes it harder to digest. So brown rice is not that much better for you, actually. It's worse because any nutrients available in the husk are bound by the lectins and the phytates and things that are in the husk. So yeah, grains are a huge controversial topic in nutrition.
Big time.
I know a lot of people who are probably going to be happy to hear you say that, though, because, they try to like brown rice, but it's just not the same.
Yeah, if you soak it and like torture it, then sure, you get brown rice is better for you. But most of us aren't going to go through all that. Wild rice, that's the one. You want wild rice. That's the best.
Mm-hmm.
Can you say those 3 things that you said were your main 3?
So whole foods, nutrient density, and proper preparation. Beyond those 3 things, every single body is a unique combination lock of factors in terms of what they should eat, which is why this book is amazing.
Yeah, I'm very interested. I'm going to be contacting you later, Heather.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to chat. Sure.
Yeah.
Any of you guys, bring it.
Yeah, for sure.
This is my life now. I'm a big old nutrition nerd.
Yeah. I love this. No, you have enlightened me today on a few things that I did not know. I did not know anything about, especially about the sprouting of the grains. That I did not know. I just always thought, just ferment them and and then that's good too. But the sprouting just brings a whole new level. So it changes things. That's very, very interesting.
Yeah.
If you regularly use grains, and if you regularly like with Constance, if you make it a routine, it's not a huge inconvenience. It's like when you first start out and trying to get like a routine going, it can be a challenge and it can seem overwhelming. But once you do it, it's a couple minutes a day. It's not a big deal at all.
Yeah.
Especially
Humans are incredibly adaptable.
Yeah.
Just making it a habit, like other things. Now, okay, let me ask you this. I'm getting all in today. So can you ferment or sourdough a corn masa? Have you ever done that?
Ooh,
Can you
good
do
question.
that? Because I would like to, because I use a lot of cornmeal, but I know corn is not good. So I'm like, if I can ferment it, maybe that'll be a little bit better, but I don't know. I've never done that.
You're gluten sensitive, right?
Well, I don't do gluten because of the Hashimoto's. I'm not sensitive necessarily. It doesn't really bother me if I eat it, but I'm just avoiding it because of the Hashimoto's mainly. Because
okay, gotcha. So corn is cross-reactive with gluten. So if anybody is gluten sensitive, there's that. It also does contain gluten. It's just not the gliadin that's in wheat. So you've been following my gluten-free sourdough adventures, kind of. I started and I just didn't share anymore, but I need to get back to that. I would expect you could probably use a starter, like a bacterial starter, with any kind of flour and get like a fermented situation. I've been using a combination of rice flour and what else is in there? Rice flour, sorghum, and I think there's potato starch in there. This is obviously not something I'm eating. It's for my husband, but I would expect you could probably experiment. I haven't done it, but now I'm going to try.
Yeah,
Make like a sourdough tortilla. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Corn goes really quick when you're fermenting it. Be careful.
What's that?
Corn, it goes really quick when you're fermenting it, like really quick.
I
So
did
watch out for
look up
explosions.
to what?
I said, so watch out for explosions if corn ferments quickly.
Yeah, I actually
Got to burp them.
I did look up when I had. Well, I still have my sourdough starter. But it's in the fridge. I had gotten a tortilla press, and I did look up soaked tortillas, corn tortillas, and if I remember correctly, I'm trying to find it. Was it soaked or fermented? Maybe it was fermented, but it did show using masa, but mixing sourdough starter with it, and then you just let it hang out for a little while. But anyway, so there is that.
And that makes sense that it would ferment faster, and because it's a higher sugar content. The starch in corn is pretty high.
Yeah, here's a website called butterforall.com.
Nice.
And it's homemade sourdough corn tortillas. I'll tell you really quick what the ingredients are. Here we go. Sourdough starter, the masa, harina flour, salt, warm water, and then your avocado oil for cooking in. So anyway, something to play with.
Very cool.
Jennifer says, ABS, always be soaking. That's funny. Christy says you can also ask Farmhouse on Boone. She might know. I've never seen her do a sourdough corn tortilla, but she does do sourdough flour tortillas for sure. All right. Okay. So that is all of our practical bites. Any final thoughts? We're over our hour, but man, this has been so awesome. Heather, you're gonna have to come back.
I'm down whenever. Like, you guys are the same time as my Azure pickup, so once a month I can't be here, but otherwise I would love to hang with you guys. Thanks so much for having me.
Our pleasure. And then just to let everybody know, like I said before, I do have her Instagram and her YouTube links in the description box below. So definitely be sure to check her out. Follow her on Instagram if you're there. It's just wealth of information.
It looks like Pathways Homestead said Cindy made a video on sourdough tortillas.
Perfect.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And so far in my experimentation, any grain you put in there ferments with the sourdough starter.
Okay.
Very cool.
That'll work.
All right. So we're not going to assign any reading because we are now at the end of chapter 4. So next week we'll come back and we'll have just a discussion of what we've learned already, talk about any of the practical bites that we've implemented, and we will also do a Q&A. So bring your questions. We're going to have some fun, maybe even a giveaway. So just come hang out with us next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. All right. Any final thoughts?
No. I'm
Thanks.
just glad you were able to join us, Heather.
Yeah, it was great to see you guys. Yay.
Me too. I enjoyed the extra knowledge the knowledge bombs you got.
Hopefully I didn't get too far into the data and the science because I'm nerdy like that.
I think we all enjoyed that.
That's kind of our jam. We love that. I can't spout it, but I enjoy receiving it.
That's awesome.
We need to hear it because it's easy to say that's not good for you. I want to hear the why.
Why?
Yeah.
What
Right.
is it doing in here to make me good,
Right.
bad, or otherwise? wise. Yeah.
Yep. And that's usually how you're going to change habits, is when people actually understand the why behind it versus this person just said no.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's how I might have to know why, or it's just not going to work.
Yeah. Yeah. You guys are all questioners.
Mhm. Question everything.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Me too.
All right. Okay. Well, you guys have a wonderful, beautiful, fantastical week. Keep plugging away at the practical bites as you can, changing you and your family's life forever. All right. So until next time, remember to be vigilant, be prayerful, be prepared. Don't forget to check out everybody's links down in the description box below. And God bless you all. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.